So 2025 has had a lot of games. Honestly, way too many games for any sane person to actually keep up with. We have extraction shooters like Arc Raiders, fun single-player games like Hollow Knight, Silksong, Kingdom Come Deliverance, or something like Doom the Dark Ages. Really, an endless amount. Or you can play the greatest co-op game ever made with Split Fiction. 2025 has been incredible, and I can talk about the vast amount of games to play for hours. But one genre has taken over in terms of quality over the last year, and it's roguelites. Every year I make a top 10 roguelites of the year video, and every year it gets harder to pick a top 10 because this genre is filled with so much diversity, and this year has been no different. So let's name my top 10 roguelites of the year, and be sure to like and subscribe if you like roguelites, and as it helps out this channel a lot. Starting this list off is the game I wish I played more, and if I did play more, it could easily be higher on here. But I had to include this game because it's just so charming, and it's StarVaders. It was released on April 30th, and it's a deck building turn-based roguelite. You know, those are pretty rare nowadays, but this game is great. It has an insane amount of variety as you have 3 different classes to choose from with the Gunner, Stinger, and then a mystery one. Woo! I just haven't unlocked them yet. But each class has multiple different starting characters that start with a different buff and different cards. Right there alone, you have so many options to choose from in terms of a run. If you look at the compendium, you can see the insane amount of abilities to unlock for every single class, and how every character has their own unique cards within whatever class you're playing. The vast amount of variety can keep you going for a while, especially if you're a completionist, as the game has 100 achievements, but also has 3 different difficulty enhancers to choose from when starting a run. And runs aren't anything too crazy. My victories tend to take me 45 minutes, as a run consists of 3 biomes, with each biome housing different enemies and unique bosses. The game starts off relatively simple on the first difficulty, but don't let that fool you. It can become really hard, and it may only be number 10, but it's one that you should 100% check out, especially as a deck builder fan. Last year, we had incredible early access games, and at number 9 is the first early access game that released into 1.0 this year that will be on this list, and it's the Rogue Prince of Persia. I played it when it was in early access a little bit and was overall impressed with what it offered. So it's one game I knew I was picking up when it released into 1.0, and I'm glad I did. It released into 1.0 on August 20th, and the biggest difference from early access is the art style. Midway through the early access period, they changed the art style entirely, and while that alone doesn't put it at number 9, the new style just fits the game so much more, and it makes it much more appealing. Now, what is this game? It's extremely similar to Dead Cells, as the developers are Evil Empire, and they are known for working on Dead Cells DLC. So the Rogue Prince of Persia is reminiscent of that. You play as the Prince of Persia as you're trying to save your family from Nogoi, I said that wrong, and every time you die, you are saved by your bola and brought back to a safe village 3 days after the attacks on your village. The more you play the game, the more you unlock as you save your family and other important villagers inside your run. You have multiple main story missions you do, which are very easy to figure out inside the run, but eventually you can unlock more weapons and medallions which act as passive buffs inside of a run. But for a permanent buff, you do have multiple meta progression trees that you unlock from just playing the game and gaining XP. The progression is nice in this game, and the story itself is also nice, but you can get the true ending in about 10 hours, which is a little disappointing, but those 10 hours are a lot of fun. The combat is fluid and does rely a good amount on dodging and running or climbing on the walls. The enemy variety isn't the greatest, but it's good enough for what the game offers. Our run only has about 6 biomes and 3 major boss fights inside of a run, with 5 bosses total in the game, but not every roguelite needs to hook you in for 50 plus hours. But if you really love this game, you can play it as long as you want, really. I started a fresh file for the 1.0 release on Game Pass and got 15 hours out of it while achievement hunting. I didn't even get all the achievements yet, but I enjoyed the game enough and wanted to include it on this list. Now, do you like FTL? It's one of the greatest and oldest roguelites out there. It's an incredible strategy-based game that is known for being pretty hard, but this year we had a game called Void War release, and it's essentially a carbon copy of FTL, but in a very good way. It was released on June 2nd, and when I saw it, I knew I wanted to play it. Did I play it a lot? Not as much as I would like to as of this video, but the times I did play it, I was fully engrossed. You have multiple different starting commanders to choose from, and of course, multiple different ships to choose from that all have different starting weapons and rooms. The core gameplay is essentially FTL. You go through multiple biomes with one major boss fight at the end, and you collect scraps to upgrade your ships, buy new weapons, recruit new members, and you fight random ships in every biome or have random events. It's all really fun and it's well executed. You don't have to worry about fuel in this game unlike FTL, so your run is over when you die or when you win. The combat is strategic because you will need to pause the game constantly and time your weapon shots to destroy enemy shields fast enough and focus on whatever rooms you can. But the one thing that I felt was really different compared to FTL was the focus on crew members fighting. Your crew members are much more lively in this game. They can have armor, weapons, tools, or even psychic abilities, but it all depends on what species they are. But the crew combat seemed much more mandatory in Void War, which was fine because it's really easy. My best run, I'd just shoot a couple crew members into the enemy ship and they would kill everybody. Thanks for the 38 months, I greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the emotes as always. Dude, he's killing everybody! I got an achievement! Dude, he killed everybody! I'm sure you can win without doing this if you want to, but as someone who's a huge fan of FTL, this was a must pick up for me, and it's definitely one of my favorites of the year. Okay, we have another strategy game next, but this one I am not as good at, but still absolutely love it. And it's The King is Watching. It was released on July 21st, and this is a base building RTS roguelite. RTS stands for real-time strategy if you don't know, and this game is addicting. But also, I struggle with it immensely as I cannot win on the base difficulty. But everyone else can. I just stink at RTS games except Pikmin. I love you, Pikmin. But The King is Watching is something special. You have multiple different kings that you unlock and a lot of in-depth meta progression to unlock more troop types, more buildings, more slots for advisors, which act as passive buffs for your run, and then you have a ton of advisors to choose from, which can lead to a lot of different strategy inside your run to give every run a unique feeling. Really, every time I play this game, I have endless amounts of choices, and it can be a bit overwhelming as there's a shit ton of resources, which you can see on the bottom of the screen, but inside of a run is just so fun. You have this little kingdom at your disposal, and it's your job to gather resources, troops, and buildings while you also dictate how many enemies you will fight on the next wave. The more enemies you choose, the more rewards you can get, but also you have a higher risk of potentially destroying your castle. It's all about load management and how much you think you can do, because inside of a run, you can only have so many troops on the battlefield at once, which you can upgrade with materials, but every troop is also so unique and they can also be upgraded to become stronger, and the grid for where everything goes is pretty big, but you also have this gaze, and whatever the gaze is hovered over is the only squares that are currently active. So if you need troops in a hurry but also need resources, you better hope that the troops and resources you need are next to each other so they can be gathered together. If not, you have to move them around, and then it takes a little bit longer to gather them just for a small period. But that makes this game so strategic, and the skill ceiling is incredibly high as the difficulty enhancers go up to threat level 10, but I'm stuck on like threat level 2 or 3. If I had a list for games I wish I was great at, this would be at the very top of it. Maybe one day I'll figure out how to actually win a busted run in this game, but for now, I'll just suck at it and be happy. You know how Balatro is one of the greatest games ever made, and it's popularized these kinds of silly gambling-esque roguelites? Well, a lot of them exist, but one of them actually stood out to me a lot this year, and it's CloverPit. It was released on September 26th, and it's my 6th favorite roguelite this year. It doesn't go as in-depth as other roguelites, and it might not have as much replayability as others, but the simplicity of this game and its runs are something that I just enjoyed. You have a slot machine, you have X number of spins per round, and generally 3 rounds to make a certain amount of money to pay off your debt. Simple, right? Well, honestly, yes, it is that simple, and it's what you would expect. Of course, there's more to the game because just that would be a little too simple, but after each round, you get green tickets that allow you to buy charms, and these act as your buffs inside of the run. Some charms only last a certain number of spins, but the charms all have their own different effects, with potentially making certain symbols appear more or less, give the symbols some type of effect to make them stronger, or something simple like more interest so you get more money after a round. The charms are a nice nice addition, and you can hold generally about 6 at a time. But if you get the right charms, you can get an insanely busted run. And besides for charms, you get a phone call after every single round, which gives you another buff. The phone call I found helped me lead to my few busted runs that I had. I may not have as many hours on this game compared to others on this list, but in that time, it was genuinely super fun. I got the credits to roll because there is some story that you can just totally ignore if you want to just keep spinning the slot machine, but I got the credits and I felt content with it. I will say that a small negative for me is the amount of charms can be a little overwhelming, and that it could hinder your experience the more you unlock because it gets harder to find the best charms to help you build. That's a small negative, just like the rainbow cards in this game. 2 negatives about a game. How did it make this list? But rainbow cards are cards you unlock whenever you clear an ante and immediately have enough money to clear the next ante. You get these rainbow cards that change the way a run is played, and that's fine. But the negative thing about them is you can only use them once, and with how annoying it can be to unlock them, it's easier to just play the game normally, as that's good enough to be the 6th best roguelite to me. Now, number 5 is actually the roguelite game that I'm currently playing, so maybe it has some recency bias, but I don't have a crazy amount of time on it yet. But it is overwhelmingly positive on Steam, and it's Monster Train 2. It was released on May 21st, and a lot of people say Monster Train is the best deck building roguelite that isn't Slay the Spire. But immediately I can say one negative thing about Monster Train 2, and it's that it feels kinda slow when you first start playing. Maybe me never playing the first one can help account for that, but my first couple of runs just felt awful with how powerful the enemies are and my knowledge on the game being so minuscule. But once it starts clicking, it's kind of addicting. The gameplay is simple. It's a deck builder with some auto battling, and you have 3 floors on a train, and you're defending your pyre from waves of enemies. After a turn is up, if the enemies stay alive, they move on to the next floor, and if they get to the 4th floor, they attack your pyre, but it can defend itself. The combat is simple, but the deck building is not. You have lots of different effects you can learn that will change the course of battle, and within the game itself, you have a lot of variety with what builds you want to do. You have multiple different starting clans to play as, and each clan has different champions that you can pick, which determines what type of run you might build with, because the champion is the big character that you have that's free to play every single time. You can also have an alliance with one other clan before a run starts, and that determines what type of cards you will find in a run. So every run has 2 different types of cards that you're finding, but 1 champion. I'm personally a big fan of the Luna Coven, but just unlocked the Mushroom Clan, the Under Legion, as of writing this script, and I'm excited to see what they can bring to a run. The build variety and diversity is really fun, and once you get the combat to click, you kind of go on autopilot with the game. The runs aren't crazy long, as you have about 9 battles to go through with a few big boss fights at the end, and then you have great difficulty enhancers to make it harder. The crazy amount of relics that can passively buff you inside of a run, all the fun clans, all the different alliances, there's so many different combinations to try out, and if I want to get really good at it, the difficulty enhancers will be there to test me. It would be rude to not include it on this list. I stink at deck builders, but damn it, they're fun as hell. Next, we have a game I thought for sure was going to be number 2 on this list, but it snuck down to number 4, and it's Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Like the Rogue Prince of Persia, this game entered early access last year, and it fully released on September 17th. But don't get me wrong, this is probably my most played roguelite of the year, and I love it. But it's also a horde survivor game. Those are easy to lose some time to. You kill enemies, gain XP, level up your weapons, and become stronger inside of a run. It's pretty simple, but DRGS is a lot more unique to me still, and could be my number 1 horde survivor of all time when I'm all said and done with it. It's not just go in, kill enemies, become super overpowered, and leave. This game has so much depth to it, and the primary focus is not just killing enemies. It's more so mining for meta progression materials and killing enemies. This game goes super deep with meta progression, and if you're a completionist like me, you will be grinding this game a lot. I mean, it has 300 achievements. I've probably played for around 40 to 50 hours and only have a little more than half of them, but a lot of them are based around difficulty, and Deep Rock Galactic Survivor has that. Okay, so you have 4 characters: Gunner, Scout, Engineer, Miner. Each character has multiple classes that start with a different weapon and different buffs, and each character also levels up and unlocks you more items to find or weapons to use inside of a run, and DRGS has a lot lot of weapons, and each class for each character is stronger with certain builds, but can shine with any build if you get the right items, or have the right gear equipped. Along with these characters, you have gear to find that gives you passive buffs that become stronger the higher your gear level is, which levels up automatically. And the gear becomes a lot more essential, I'd say, in Hazard level 4, which is the second highest difficulty for whatever type of run you're going for. This game has so much for a Horde survivor. You have your general mode with each biome and side missions, and you go through 5 floors for this general mode. You then have a payload mode where you push a payload named Bob and you go through 3 floors, and each of these modes goes up to Hazard 5, the hardest difficulty for each biome. And then, don't worry, there's even more with Mastery. You have general meta progression for more damage, speed, crit chance, the usual things for Horde survivors, and that's fine and extremely fun to level up fully. But then you have masteries for every weapon, biome, and class that gain stronger buffs based on the difficulty of mastery that you beat. So beating a weapon on Hazard 1 might give it 6% more damage, but beating the mastery on Hazard 5 would give it 30% more damage. There's just so much, and that's what I love about it, and why I keep coming back to it. Whether it's a 15-minute mastery for a weapon, or a 45-minute mastery for a biome, or just a general run, I know it's something I will enjoy, and any Horde Survivor fan should try this game out. It's truly one of the best roguelites to release this year. I'm not the greatest gamer in a handful of genres that I like to play, like strategy games or beat-em-ups, but this year had one of the greatest beat-em-ups that I've ever played released, and it's the 3rd best roguelite of the year, and it's Absalom. It was released October 9th, and it could easily be the #1 roguelite. I had a really hard time deciding between these next 3, but Absalom is just a gem. You have 4 different characters to play as that all have a super unique moveset and their own unlocks to get by just playing the game. The unlocks for these characters are typically just a special move that you can use after hitting enemies a certain amount of times inside of a run, but you also have more traditional meta progression that works on every character. The small things like more HP, more damage, better drop rate on relics, nothing that makes the game too easy, because even when the meta progression is fully unlocked, I struggled at times with this game. But that's the thing, it's a beat-em-ups game. They're not easy, and this is a game I failed a lot at. But the more I played the game, the more consistent I became. The first major boss destroyed me in the first 4 runs that I tried, but towards the end of the game, I never lost to them because I just started to understand all the enemies' movesets, and mastered my own movesets, really. This was one of the most satisfying games to play, as you can clearly see yourself getting better, and the story itself is just top-notch as well. You play as one of the 4 characters, and your hub world is safe from King Azra, and your goal is to retake the magic from Azra and save Talum. It is a game you can complete the story in about 12 hours depending on skill, but it also has a true ending with a true final boss that isn't King Azra that I would highly recommend going for if you do play this. Not because it's insanely hard, but because it's insanely fun. I crave this game almost every day and will definitely go back to get everything done because it's just that good. I almost had all the achievements, but you know, I got about 10 left to do. Also, Brome is by far my favorite character in this game. It's probably one of my favorite characters that's ever released in any roguelite ever. It's a magic frog. What's not to love? Seriously, play this game. It also has local and online co-op that runs really well from what I hear. I never played it in co-op and just played it by myself, but I'll play it in co-op one day. Absalom, absolute gem. Do you like playing with balls? If so, the second best roguelite of the year is absolutely perfect for you, and it's Ball Pit. Ball Pit is a game that took over my life when it was released on October 15th. I don't know life games too often because I like to have a life, but I played this game for 35 hours in 1 week and got every achievement immediately. I'm tempted to pick it up on Game Pass and 100% it again because it was just that fun. But what makes it that fun? Well, like a few other games on this list, it's the simplicity of the idea that the game offers, but it executes it perfectly and blows your expectations away. It's a bullet hell-esque roguelite that has a small element of city building and a crazy amount of options inside of a run. You have 16 characters, all with a different start and ball, and inside your run you pick one of 8 levels to play, all with different enemies and a different final boss. And you can just throw balls at enemies and kill them. They drop XP, and whenever you level up, you can pick a ball or a passive item. But the fun thing is that every ball has such insane combinations combinations, and multiple balls can combine with each other to give you a ball with multiple different effects, or a totally new ball with evolution. Some passive items can evolve as well, but definitely not as diverse as all the crazy balls that you can create. And a single level only takes about 10 to 20 minutes, and you can speed it up if you like, and once a level is done, whatever character you were playing as levels up and grows permanently stronger. All 16 characters are really unique, and have their own little special effects. Hell, there's a character that plays the entire game for you, so you can just let the little guy go while you're doing the dishes or something. And while I love all the little characters the game offers, let's talk about the city building aspect. I said this game has city building, and it does. It's most of the meta progression really, but after a level you gain materials like wood, stone, and wheat. But you also get to throw your characters into the city and have them bounce all over it, gathering you more materials, and potentially leveling up your buildings. The buildings can unlock you characters, buff your characters, or buff the amount of balls or passives you can own, or just get you more materials. The city building aspect is relatively small in my eyes, but just as important for progression. I love Ball Pit, and I'll even admit though, it can get a little easy after a certain threshold. But even when it got a little easy, I found myself enjoying the game so much. It's available virtually everywhere and one of my favorite games in general this year. And before we get to my favorite roguelite of the year, I always like to shout out a few early access games that I think you should keep your eyes on. First, we have He Is Coming. This is a super simple game that reminded me of Loop Hero with its aesthetics. It's an RPG auto battler, and inside of a run you have a certain number of times before a boss spawns. And in that time, you're hopping around a little board, collecting loot and fighting enemies. You can combine the same item to double its effect really, and that is super mandatory to win as the final boss is pretty tough to beat. I only beat the first area so far, but I liked it enough to want to jump back in when it releases in the 1.0. Next, we have Die in the Dungeon, where you play as a cute little frog, and it's a turn-based deck builder, but it's not a deck you're building, it's dice. Your dice can power up other dice, give you shields, heal you, copy a dice X number of spaces away, or attack the enemy. I played this one a bit and loved it more than I expected. Our run did take me a while to win, but it had 3 sections and felt pretty balanced in my experience. Some fights seemed extremely hard, but if you take your time to figure out their gimmicks, it's not too shabby. I'm excited to see this one fully released because I'll be playing it day one. And one last early access game is one of my go-to roguelites and has become one of my favorites, and it's Nine Kings. It's a strategy game I'm actually good at, I think. You have 9 different kings, all with their own starting cards, and your goal is to survive 33 years. And then you can go to endless if you want. But after every year, you get a card from the opposing king you just fought, and you place it on your little kingdom. All the cards have different buffs for troops, or just giving you more money, and they can all level up multiple times. Nine Kings has insane difficulty enhancers that truly lets you play the game the way you want to. And it recently released a story-esque mode on Steam, and as of writing this script, I have not played it yet, but I will soon. Nine Kings is a game you will see on next year's list if it releases in the 1.0 because I love it that much. And my favorite roguelite of the year is probably not a surprise, which is a little disappointing 2 years in a row because last year it was Balatro, but my number one this year is Hades 2. It's no surprise, I love the original Hades, and Hades 2 is one I might like even more. Is the story as good as the original game? No. In my opinion, the story is a little bit weaker, but the premise of rescuing your family from Kronos, the Titan of Time, is something I can get behind. And I'm not saying the story is bad, it's just not as good as the original. But what matters more in something like Hades is the combat. The combat is fluid, fun, and challenging if you want it to be. You get to play as a witch named Melinoe, the daughter of Hades, and like her brother Zagreus, you have multiple different weapons with different aspects that allow you multiple different play styles for each one. And all of the weapons are really fun to play with. My personal favorite is the Argent Skull, as it reminds me of the gun in Hades 1, which was my go-to then. And inside your runs, it's similar with setup to the first game, with 3 areas all ending in a challenging boss fight, and the more you play, the better you will become, as with any video game ever. All the art, voice acting, fluidity of combat, music, it's all incredible. It's what we come to expect from Supergiant Games, and they delivered. The great thing about Hades 2 is if you get tired of the underworld and fighting Kronos, you can go all the way up to the surface if you have it unlocked, and do a whole new run with new enemies and new bosses that are a lot harder. It's similar setup with 3 major areas with a final boss before the big final boss, but the surface adds so much replayability to the game, and it's so much harder. Really, I can dominate Kronos in the underworld pretty comfortably, but the surface surface, it kicks my ass a lot. There's so much more inside of a run that makes me love Hades 2. But outside of a run, you have just as much. You have, of course, difficulty enhancers that are just as good as the heat system in Hades 1, which adds replayability. You have meta progression with Arcana cards. To go with the Arcana cards, you have Malinois's Grasp, so you can only have a certain number of cards active at once, and you have tons of characters to talk to and learn the lore of if you want to. Hades 2 is another roguelite that I will easily invest over 100 hours into when it's all said and done. Now, I said something in last year's video that got me thinking, but it's been another fantastic year for roguelites, and I cannot wait to see what this genre can do next. It just gets better every year. Yeah, this year you would think Hades 2 would be runaway for roguelites, and it is my #1 of the year, but it was such a hard choice between Hades 2, Absalom, and Ball Pit at #1. The amount of incredible games that have come out that represent the roguelite genre is insane. Sure, there's a lot of weird and messy games out there that aren't that great, but I personally have missed so many games myself, because how can anyone keep up with the sheer amount of great games coming out? So let me know some of your favorite roguelites or some of your favorite games in the comments down below so I know what games I missed. And of course, thank you for watching this video. I can't wait to see what the next year of roguelites and games has to offer. But yeah, that's all. I'll see you next time.